What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be checking out the Transformers 1 Deluxe Class Optimus Prime / Orion PAX, the first entry into the movie line that does have a Studio Series counterpart, and surprisingly, the comparison isn't anywhere near as cutthroat as I was expecting. So as we check out the details, the head sculpt does look sick, although I do think this time round may be slightly too detailed in comparison to what we have so far seen. But as we spin down to the rest of the robot mode, honestly guys, there is very little to complain about. The details are looking sharp, and with the exception of the forearms, he has mostly been filled in front side to back. I think easily the biggest selling point of this guy though would be the colour scheme. Unlike the Studio Series version, he is now sporting a way more traditional metallic silver and grey, which at least when it does come down to an action figure, definitely does look much better. I also think the back profile is immaculate. There is barely any kibble on this guy at all, and even the backpack itself has been surprisingly really nicely detailed. So not only is this a great substitute for a Transformers 1 Optimus Prime, but I also think an Orion PAX. He is much smaller in comparison to his Studio Series counterpart, so stacked up alongside him, he really does create for a pretty wicked companion piece. Slashing into this guy's accessories, up first we do see the return of the iconic Energon Battle Axe. Now the biggest difference design wise in comparison to the Studio Series version would be the fingers now wrap around the actual bulb, which to be fair guys, I do actually prefer this look, especially once integrated into the figure's fist. The next two accessories are a pair of Optimus Prime smokestacks, although to be honest guys, when it does come down to the integration into the design, I personally do prefer to leave them off just to create for a slightly simpler, more smoother design to better match how Orion PAX will appear in the movie. The third and final accessory is easily the best out of the bunch, as we do see the return of the legendary Matrix of Leadership. Now due to its integration into the figure's fists, this time round it does look kind of strange when it does come down to design, but to be fair has yet again been really nicely painted and can surprisingly be stored inside this guy's inbuilt Matrix chamber. So despite only being a mainline release and retailing for roughly $20, I did think that it was pretty wicked how he too also includes pretty much exactly the same as we did see from the Studio Series counterpart. Jumping into this guy's posability, to begin with, the head has no issues in swinging all of the way backwards, which is epic, especially for some of those more dynamic action poses. It can then of course be brought forward as well as spin both left to right. The shoulders are packing ball joints, so in addition to crunching inwards, can also spin both forwards and backwards, and can then also finally kick out there to the side. He is packing a pretty decent elbow bend as well as a bicep swivel, although unfortunately due to the way he does transform, lacks any form of wrist rotation. But to my surprise, is packing a reverse ab crunch, which again is pretty decent, and the waist has no issues in spinning all the way around despite it not being used for the transformation. The hips can then also kick out to the side roughly to that far and have no issues in being brought both forwards and backwards. The thigh can spin all the way around and the knee can bend pretty much to 90, although unfortunately he is lacking what is now the standard ankle rocker joint, but that is mainly just due to the way this guy does transform. But with that being said, you are still able to get him into some pretty cool poses, but as I'm sure you guys all know by now, to see the true power of this Prime, now let's put him through the pose test. Leading the way into some robot mode size comparisons, first up we are bringing out the Transformers 1 Studio Series Deluxe Class Optimus Prime. Now from an Optimus Prime design standpoint, I do find myself overall preferring the look of the Studio Series version, but with that being said, the mainline release still has a lot going for it. For example, it includes near enough exactly the same amount of accessories as this guy, it does retail for slightly less, and not to mention, I also think the mainline Optimus Prime doubles as a pretty wicked Orion PAX. Flying through the rest of the Transformers 1 mainline deluxes, first up we have Bumblebee, Alpha Trion, Sentinel Prime, and as a bonus here we have the Cyberverse Deluxe Class Megatron, because surprisingly despite Megatron being advertised everywhere alongside Optimus Prime, he is yet to receive the mainline treatment, and to be fair guys, when it does come down to two companion pieces, I think these two look wicked stacked up against each other. The Transformers Studio Series Rise of the Beasts Deluxe Class Bumblebee, then finally rounding things off with the legend that is the Earthrise Optimus Prime. Charging into this guy's transformation, despite yet again only being a mainline release, he is still surprisingly packing some incredibly neat twists and turns. So for the first step, we are going to take the head sculpt and slide this here all of the way back exactly like that.
Where's my head?
Then for the next step, we can kick the shoulders here out to the side. We are now going to take a hold of the fist and slide this inside that hollow cavity. We can then begin to spin around by making use out of that bicep joint. And again guys, now let's make sure to do the same for the opposite side. So, kick the shoulder there outwards, take a hold of the fist and slide this here inwards, and then spin around by making use out of that bicep joint. Then for the next step, we turn to what is easily my favourite part of the transformation, the legs, because these are packing a really neat piece of design. So, we are first of all going to spin to the outside panel. We are going to take this and pull this here backwards, exactly like that. Once that's complete, we can now come around here to the back, and here is where you are going to take the knee and the thigh and push these here in opposite directions to each other. This will then completely flip all the way upside down just like that until eventually this here does very nicely snap into place. Once that's complete, we can now take this panel and snap this here back over. And again guys, now let's make sure to do the same for the opposite side. So making use out of this panel, we are going to slide this here open. We are then going to push the knee and the thigh in opposite directions to each other until eventually this entire panel flips all the way up exactly like that. We can then snap that there into place, and then for one final touch, you are going to take this and also snap that into place. With that now complete, we can then proceed to combine these here directly down the middle, and then for the next step, we are now going to take a hold of the entire chest unit. So you are going to pull this here forwards, and stored on the inside is the inbuilt matrix chamber. So we are then going to begin to slide this here forwards, just like that. Once that's complete, we can now make use out of these pin joints. So we are going to extend these here downwards, just like this. And again guys, now let's make sure to do the same for the opposite side. So drop that bad boy there down. We can then spin around here to the back of Optimus Prime, where we are now going to take the back plate, hinge this here all of the way up, and then begin to spin this here around just like this. Once that's complete, here is where we can now make use out of that reverse ab crunch, and we are going to pull this here all of the way back until eventually he should be looking just like that. It is now at this stage where we can spin back around to the front end of the truck mode, because what we are now going to do is make use out of these elbow joints. We are going to begin to crunch these here backwards. And again guys, let's now make sure to do the same for the opposite side. Once that's then complete, we can make use out of these hinge joints, and you are going to begin to drop these here downwards exactly like this. Let's now make sure to do the same for the opposite side. So drop all of that there downwards, which should then hopefully allow for enough clearance for us to then take the front end of the truck and snap this here into place. With that now complete, we can now take what was originally the backpack and snap this here over the top. Then what you're going to do is spin here to the side. We are now going to make use out of these shoulder joints and spin these here upwards. Now first of all, there is a slot on the underside of this panel that has to attach into that tab. Now this can be kind of tricky to get into place, but just make sure that that there does very nicely snap into place. And then for the next step, you are now going to spin around here to the side. There is a tiny slot on the forearm that is going to attach into that tab. And again guys, now let's make sure to do the same for the opposite side. So spin upwards by making use out of that ball joint, and then yet again, that tab is going to slide into that slot. Once that's complete, we can then spin around here to the back, make sure that the forearm also does snap there into place, and then for a finishing touch, at least when it comes down to the back of the truck, we are now going to attach the base of the feet into the tabs on the back of the arms, just like that. Then what we are going to do is make use out of these smokestacks and flip these here all the way around, forming the exhaust pipes of Optimus Prime. Again, now let's spin around here to this side and make sure to do exactly the same until eventually Optimus Prime should be looking exactly like this. Rolling out through the battlefield of Cybertron, here we have Optimus Prime now fully transformed into his truck mode, and it definitely looks decent. I think after this video, this guy will always be known to myself though as ORION PAX, because when it does come down to design, he does appear to be way simpler in comparison to the Studio Series version. But with that being said, it's still strikingly very similar to what we have so far seen from the most recent teaser trailer. So as we check out the details up front, this guy is looking sick, although he is missing those inbuilt built blasters, which was something that we did see from the previous version. Although, as we do spin this guy here to the side, it is a shame to see him still suffer from the visible forearm and fist issue. This does look kind of rough, although considering that I believe almost every version of this guy has had this issue so far, I'm thinking that maybe it's just an issue of the design. But as we spin him here up top, he is surprisingly packing an incredibly clean truck bed, and there is also weapon integration, which is very similar again in design to the Studio Series release. Considering that this guy has mostly been detailed front side to back, even as we spin him here to the underside, he is packing some pretty sharp Cybertronian panels, and despite only the front set of wheels being pinned on, he still has no issues in burning energon whilst cruising through that Cybertronian battleground. So yet again, another solid entry into this Transformers 1 movie line, and for those of you who maybe don't like the look of the Studio Series version, I really don't think this will be a bad stand-in at all. Racing through some size comparisons, first up we have the Studio Series version of this design. Now whilst I still think this looks good when it does come down to specifically Optimus Prime, yet again I do think the Studio Series version reigns supreme, especially when you begin to spin them here to the side. The mainline release makes for a decent Optimus Prime, but for an even better Orion Pax, especially when it does come down to scale and detail, although to be fair guys, with that being said, I do think when it specifically comes down to colour scheme, the mainline version, despite perhaps not being accurate to the movie, does look visually better. Next up we have the Transformers 1 Mainline Deluxe Class Bumblebee, the Transformers Studio Series Rise of the Beast Bumblebee, then finally, rounding things off completely, here we have the myth, the legend that is the Earthrise Optimus Prime. So, wrapping up on this review for the Transformers 1 Deluxe Class Optimus Prime / Orion Pax. Yet again, this is another mostly solid entry into this movie line, and in comparison to the $25 that we usually see from the Studio Series Deluxes, this guy instead is retailing for more around the $20 mark, and for that price point, I actually think he's pretty wicked, especially when it does come down to that robot mode. So I would love to get your guys' thoughts on this Optimus Prime down in the comment section below. What do you guys think? I want to thank you all so much for watching, and until my next video, transform and roll out!